Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Stately office hours of 2022. It's nice to have you joining us. This is where us, the Stately team, discuss everything that we've been working on with Stately and XState, and we answer your questions and get your feedback. And yeah, just talk about what's going on. We'll do team intros first so that you know who each of us are and what the point of us being here is. I'll start off. I'm Laura Kalbag and I do developer and designer relations for Stately. David?
Yeah, I'm David, the founder of Stately.ai, and also still coding way too much, but I love it. So probably going to keep doing that.
Farzad?
Hey, Farzad here. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm just an engineer in Stately.
Just. And Matt?
Hello, I am official swag model for Stately. Drinking my tea today. I've got my Stately jacket over my back of my chair, and I'm a developer at Stately.
It's looking good. I can't wait for my swag to arrive. I will be showing off as well.
It's good.
I think it's stuck in customs in Dublin. So to start off, I thought let's talk about the progress that we've been making on version 5. David, you mentioned that you wanted to discuss that this week.
Sure, yes. And I wish that Mateusz was here too, because we talked about over the holiday break. Yes, sorry, I was coding there too. But we were talking about like just the future of XState and XState version 5. And we're coming really, really close, and for real this time, to cutting an alpha release of version 5. So, of course, with the version 5, there are going to be a lot of breaking, or not a lot of breaking changes, but some breaking changes. But the API of version 5 is still going to be extremely similar to the API of version 4. It's also going to be more modular and hopefully just a much better typing experience, with TypeScript. And some of these changes were actually hoping to make in version 4 as well, so that obviously that's a big priority. And there's Mateusz right now, so I'll just throw him on there. But yeah, Mateusz, I was just saying that we are planning on releasing an alpha of version 5 sometime early this year. I don't want to give an exact date just because we're extremely busy with a lot of other stuff, but it's something that we have talked about. So yeah, that's the update there.
And speaking of working on version 5 and core and things like that, we mentioned that we want to talk about having other people contribute to the open source elements of what we're working on.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So we've had a lot of really good contributions, just over the last, even few months. And so we really encourage everyone to make contributions either to the code, the documentation, or even now that we have our own blog at stately.ai/blog, just, making blog posts. Hit us up if you want to, contribute a blog post idea, or anything like that. And also let us know how we can make the contribution experience a lot easier for you. I think one of the biggest things we now have, I'm not sure if it's live, but we now have Chinese, simple Chinese translation for the documentation. So
yeah, thank you to Lesserpin for doing that. It's amazing. And I went through it. It's very thorough as well.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, there were also requests of translating the documentation to Spanish too. So I think just international support is going to be really, really important. And so we look forward to contributions like that.
Yeah, if anyone is interested in doing that, if you want to just do a pull request, you are more than welcome to. If you want to join our Discord, which is, you can get it at discord.gg/xstate. And then if you want to just discuss there the practicalities and how you want to do it, we're always open and ready to answer questions and throw around ideas with you as well. So why don't we start with the weekly question? We like to ask everyone questions every week and get feedback on how people are working in the community and what you're working on and what you're interested in. And I thought it would be quite fun to start off because people, I guess nowadays, especially with COVID and things like that, resolutions are a bit out the window. Like being able to survive is kind of enough. But I think a lot of us are kind of using it to think about what goals we have for the year and what we're interested in doing. And so I asked this week, how do people want to improve their development skills in 2022? And I was wondering if any of the team had any goals that they had for their development skills or any related skills over the next year.
Want to start top left?
Yeah. Well, so my first one was that I want to improve in modeling state charts this year, because I feel like I'm getting a good grasp of what's going on, but I'm still just don't really have the confidence yet in the modeling. And I want to learn more about how to do it well in order to help with everyone else in the community learning how to do it well as well.
Yeah, honestly, that's such an important skill, and it's not really something where you could just read up and learn about it. It's something that definitely takes practice. Like I myself, just wants to learn how to, model state charts and just state in general better too. Like it's something that you could learn for the rest of your development career. But personally for me, one of my big development goals is just being wary of my bubbles, like, React or JavaScript or whatever, and trying to escape those as much as possible and seeing what else is out there, especially with new languages. Like I've worked with Go before. I really like that. We worked with XState Python in the past, so I really want to up my Python skills and just work further on XState Python. But even doing different frameworks like Svelte and Vue and really getting used to those, because it's one thing to read the documentation and it's another thing to learn what are the idiomatic best practices for each of those different languages, tools, or frameworks. So yeah, that's my big development goal.
That's quite big as well. Quite a lot there. How about you, Matt?
Well, my plan, as usual, is to just sort of hang on to David, Mateusz, and Farzad's coattails and sort of learn what they're learning, because it's such a cool team to be a part of, because everyone's always contributing and teaching us stuff. I think I feel like I've basically only written JavaScript and TypeScript in the last 4 years. So I'd love to just play around with something new, something like Rust or something that's sort of very different to what I've been working on, and kind of just diversify a bit. I think that would be fun. Other than that, just keep on tracking basically. And like everyone's always releasing stuff and like throwing new things into the JavaScript thing. So it's always very exciting to just sit there and just look what's happening with JavaScript and trying to pay attention to a small fraction of it. So yeah, I'll keep on with that.
And I think it's quite difficult in working in tech in general, is that there is so much new stuff all the time that a lot of the time you're having to work out, oh, is this something that's useful to learn? Is this something that's just going to be shiny for a few months and everyone's going to forget about it? Working out what's actually valuable, I think, is quite a big part of, I think you build it up as in experience as you're working in tech. Definitely. I think I
do feel like I've been able to relax a bit more. Been able to relax a bit more since learning XState, actually, because XState feels incredibly stable, like it's not going anywhere, like states and actions and invokes and stuff are not going anywhere. And it's not like I'm going to have to learn a whole new paradigm for, I don't know, like a few years ago when sagas were more popular in Redux Saga and that sort of thing. I had to really try and figure out what they were, and I didn't really have like an overarching paradigm I could use to understand them. Whereas if you drive everything through the state machine model and you learn how to model and learn how to see these things, then even learning more complicated stuff feels sort of easier because you can think to yourself in patterns that you know already. So yes, somehow I managed to pull this around to a plug for XState. Why not?
How about you, Mateusz? What are you planning to work on in 2022?
Fingers crossed that this will be the year that I will actually understand CSS, but it's CSS, so I don't really get my hopes high. So we'll see. But yeah, like what Matt has touched on a little bit. So like Rust or Go. I've been touching Go a little bit, but not a lot. And like there is this huge drive in the JavaScript community to utilize this sort of stuff more. So I imagine that I will get a chance to do so. So yeah, kind of excited for that.
And how about you, Fazad? What skills are you looking to develop in this year?
I suppose I don't have a big one, but more of like multiple small ones. I want to get back to reading books, probably finish up one book per month, technical, non-technical. I want to resurrect my blog because I have like a ton of draft posts that never have been published. And I think I'm going to write a book.
Yes. I would like to read the book that you write.
Damn,
I
dude.
think it's just going to be a book like Inclusive Components from Smashing Magazine. That's just a collection of how to implement accessible components in React. I just want to write a book for how to implement, how to model UI components in the state charts. We're going to make a library out of it, so why not just writing a book out of it?
Well. Yeah,
What
I
was
think
that?
that's by Hayden Pickering, that book. It's a friend of mine. He wrote the foreword for my book. Brilliant person, great book, great person to follow if you're interested in technology and accessibility for sure. But there's a new book coming out from A Book Apart called You Should Write a Book, which is all about the process of writing a book. And that would be a really good starting point as well, because those people are wonderful and they know what they're talking about.
Then I should wait for that, read that, and then start my book.
No, get started early and then you can use it to finish it off.
Yeah, David, I think there might be some overlaps between the book that I want to write and the book that you're writing already. You want to talk about too?
Yeah, so I'm slowly, very slowly, since I'm so busy, working on just writing. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but there's a book called Constructing the UI with State Charts, which was written in 1999. And if you haven't read it, it's such a great book. Good luck buying it though, just because it's out of print, so it's like $200 or something like that. I don't want anyone spending an excessive amount of money on the book just because it's out of print. But it has a lot of really good ideas about just modeling state and user interfaces and learning about different parts of state charts and how they help organize this logic. And honestly, this book is like evergreen. It's it has a lot of really valuable information, but I sort of want to make a modern version of it. Like, obviously not plagiarizing it, but just the same ideas of, just modeling applications with state charts. So again, I'm slowly working on that. And I also wanted to mention that Laura Kalbag has written a book called Accessibility for Everyone that I recommend everyone check out as well.
Thank you. It's getting old now, but it's still actually very much in the same vein of evergreen because accessibility changes very slowly. So it's mostly pretty up to date still. It's back in print as well now, which is good.
Yeah, it's evergreen.
It's one of
green.
Yeah, and it's one of those books that you can really judge by the cover as well, because the cover is pretty.
Yeah, very green. That was the fun part, getting to pick the color for the book.
Awesome.
Part of the A Book Apart process. We've got some folks talking about what they've been working on it as well. John said, I had a look at porting XState and FSM as part of my holiday Rust learning, but the TypeScript types are wild. I need to get way better at Rust structures and generics.
Yeah, that is the difficult bit, I think. There's someone called No Brainer in our Discord who's been trying this, and he's been running into the same stuff, which is TypeScript allows you to be more flexible than I think Rust allows you to. I don't really know that much about Rust, so I can't really speak to its difficulties, but yeah, I think that's the core of it.
Yeah, Eric said, yeah, the generic types in XState are way beyond my TypeScript level, but I learn so much whenever I dare to venture in there.
One thing to add, I guess, is that I wouldn't try to replicate like the type level stuff from the JavaScript world into other languages, because like this might just not be either possible, feasible, or it would just look like weird from the perspective of that language. So, I would try to more leverage how the code is written for that language. So like the XState port written in that language would fit that ecosystem better. So I wouldn't try to, be too invested into copying whatever XState in JavaScript is doing just one-to-one. At least at this level, because like at the runtime semantics, the port should probably behave in the very same way. So this worth like behavior should be replicated, but the type level stuff should just match whatever the given ecosystem is accustomed to. And like the TypeScript ecosystem in that regard can be wild. So I guess it's very, very different from most languages.
Yeah, it makes sense to make use of what the language is good at. And that's the whole point, I guess, of porting things to different languages as well. It actually ties in tangentially to what Adnan was saying in the comments, is that they just searched state machines on YouTube, and the only semi-popular result was about using it in Unity. So have you tried Unity and what they're doing with state machines, or I guess using state machines inside of Unity? Anyone on the team?
I haven't used Unity directly, but I do know that Unity has a visual modeling tool called Blueprints, which allows you to make hierarchical state machines. Not exactly state charts, but these are really useful in games. Eric mentioned too that games have been state machines since forever, and I guess I sort of popularized it. But yeah, Unity is like a full visual development platform, and it's actually a big source of inspiration for what we're doing in Stately, because we don't want everyone to just live in a code editor. We want them to be able to visualize and play around with things and just have a really nice visual interface for just making complex logic. But yeah, I just want to say that first of all, I am really inspired by what Unity is doing, and secondly, we do need to have more state machine videos on YouTube, and hopefully have those be more popular than Unity. That's a tough hill to climb, but we'll get there.
It's quite interesting just looking at different different practices and the way that different careers, different fields approach state machines because in some fields they're just seen as like the default. In game design, you could do what we do in React, I guess, which is kind of like this sort of semi-imperative declarative model where each render you sort of work out what you're going to do. Or you could just use state machines, and sort of where you fall on that is just kind of the received wisdom that you have in that field. So there was like a Reddit thread ages ago that someone posted that was from electrical engineering, and someone was saying, well, okay, I could use a state machine, or I could just model it like this and this and this and this and this. And people in the thread were just going, God's sake, just use a state machine. Like, what are you doing? And so the assumptions are just totally different from field to field. And it kind of just depends on what people have done before you. And hopefully we're starting the ball rolling on getting state machines as the thing they use in web development, because they fit so nicely.
Yeah. And speaking of development goals, just to go back on that, two big areas that I really want to research more, which do make heavy use of state machines, are both robotics and artificial intelligence, and especially just meshing those two together. People don't realize that like state machines are pretty much, it's not as fancy or as buzzwordy as like neural nets or deep learning or things like that. But state machines are commonly used to represent basic artificial intelligence. So there's something there. That's all I'm going to say.
It's actually potentially got more of a promise in terms of being able to keep track of what's going on in the model as well when you're using that, rather than something like a neural net, things like that, where things can get so far beyond what you've actually built that it's difficult to reverse engineer.
Exactly. And that's a huge problem in machine learning, is that neural nets aren't really, they're very, very opaque black boxes. Like, you can't see inside them and know why it made a certain decision.
Whereas state machines are perfectly visualizable the whole time.
Yeah, that could be really cool. So we asked this question on our Discord, and I have to go back. And warning to the rest of the team, don't touch any buttons while I'm doing this in case we advance the slides again. Still haven't worked out the StreamYard interface too well. Let me hide that. So I asked it on our Discord channel, and we got a couple of great answers. Now, Cedric, I apologize. I have actually cut your answer down to the XState specific stuff because you had loads of good response, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't reading for too long and boring everyone with my speech. So Cedric said about one of the things that he wanted to develop his skills around in 2022 was improving the process to integrate XState at all project levels. On the specification with XState's editor, maybe driven by the product team. On Figma, maybe driven by the UI UX team. On early development, plug in with Quasar to provide a functional prototyping to stick with the spec with reusable code. On the code review, it's a
Press the button. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
On code review with the machine detection into the PR and exporting his own machines into a separate library to have versioning, reuse it, have a sandbox to play with it, etc. Anyone on the team got anything to say about that? I think it sounds pretty cool. And XState at all levels.
Yeah, these are all really, really good ideas. So, yeah.
Especially the integrating with the team stuff, like that's just crazy cool. And hopefully we can build tools for that, but you can start doing that today if you want to. You know?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly where we want the strengths are going to lie with the tools that we're building, is in that team element. And Jan said, reflecting on this, I just realized that with state charts, I'm actually improving my development skills by improving my communication, domain, design, requirements, analysis skills. I guess this is already true for traditional programming as well, but even more so with state charts. So I guess that's, if you stick with state charts, you actually start improving all of these different areas of communication and understanding what you're building. And that's going to have endless benefits for your development skills.
Yeah, this goes back to what Matt said, where, you know, just state charts are, it really affects like the way you think about development. Even if you're not using XState or state machines or a library like that, you're going to think of things in terms of like what can happen, what events can happen, how are things going to change when this event happens, rather than when I call this function, it calls another function, which calls another function, which gets really confusing really fast. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I did end up making a little poll on Twitter. You can find it if you follow us on Twitter at StatelyAI. And I thought I'd ask what folks' top priorities were, because I can't have that many options on a Twitter poll. And it's interesting to see that most people want to improve their existing skills. And I think that's interesting. I think that's maybe showing a bit of maturity in the industry and the community, that people are more keen to actually look into developing what they're already doing rather than finding what's new and sort of jumping to the next ship of what's new and shiny.
Yeah, that feels like our audience, you know, stick with the 30-year-old, or no, more than that. What is it now, David? Is like 40-year-old?
I want to say, I mean, state machines have been around forever. State charts were published in 1987, right? 1987. So yeah, 35 years.
Damn, not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the, now it has to be the joke on the team that I'm the only one that's older than the state charts paper.
Right now,
Brilliant.
at least, yeah.
Yeah, right now. I'm sure we will get plenty more older and more experienced people on the team to beat me to it. So what else we wanted to discuss? And I should mention that if you want to ask us any questions, you can join us on YouTube and leave us a comment there. You can ask us in our Twitter feed at hashtag Stately Office Hours, or just reply to the and mention us. I can pick it up on there. Or if you join our Discord, which again, it's very popular because it's very good. Discord.gg/XState. That's where our community is. That's where we hang out all the time. We answer people's questions, give them help, or just discuss interesting things around modeling and state charts. So you can always ask a question in there. We've got a dedicated channel called Office Hours as well. So if you have anything to ask, you feel free to join us there. Now, David, you wanted to talk about Keyframers and what you've got coming up there.
Yeah, sure. So before starting Stately, I was doing a stream with one of my friends at youtube.com/Keyframers. And we took a little break for a couple of months, but we're going to hit the ground running again this year. But this time with a different format. Instead of streaming, we're going to have shorter videos just exploring all different parts of app development, including using state machines, state charts, and maybe even XState and Stately tooling in a bunch of these apps. So that's something to look forward to. Please subscribe to youtube.com/Keyframers if you haven't already. And yeah, just look forward to a lot of great new videos this year.
That'll be very cool. And we also wanted to mention that hopefully, fingers crossed, all things good and COVID willing, you'll be able to find a few of us at AgentConf in Austria at the end of the month. And the website for that is agent.sh, where David is presenting. David, what are you going to be speaking about at AgentConf?
So my talk is titled Code Without Code, the Future of Development. Again, a very buzzwordy title, but as conferences go, that's what you sort of have to do. But what it's going to be about is we're basically going to be talking about how low code and no code tools are actually really useful to developers and how you might be using a lot of them without even knowing it. And near the end of the talk, we're going to be showing off the Stately editor and maybe announcing a couple other surprise things. So it's definitely not going to be one that you want to miss. We've been working really hard on the editor, so we're going to have a bunch of really good features to show you at the talk. And I can't wait to do. It's not really live coding because it's low code, no code. It's more like live designing. So that's what's going to happen.
It's going to be fun. I'm hoping that I get to see it in person. It's going to be great. And if anyone does miss it, of course, we will share everything afterwards. You just got to be there to see it first. Now, does anyone else on the team have anything that you wanted to share this week?
I wanted to answer Cedric's question, actually. There's this cool question that Cedric asked. Do you already have something on XState to stick with Figma? I'm pretty sure I've heard something, maybe just an idea on that. This is actually one of the first things I thought about when I was getting into XState. Being able to do things like take an XState machine and then like copy and paste it into a Figma plugin or something like that and have it just spit out a bunch of things that sort of represented all the different states and kind of have prototypes that you could move and or create a prototype which linked all those states together through events. This is something that we're really, really keen on and something that might come into the visual editor side, either import from Figma or export to Figma or link Figma or something like that. That's something we're going to be exploring, I think, hopefully this year. And in general, I think there's a really cool avenue that I'm really interested in Laura's thoughts on, especially to do with integrating design tools with visual coding tools like ours. Is there anything that immediately comes to mind to you, Laura, as how that would be useful or what you could do with that?
Oh yeah, anything that stops you having to spit out speculative artifacts. I think that the amount of time that is wasted in design where you are basically drawing pictures of stuff that may not be used in the future, that might be illustrating a state that won't exist. And so even having a list of states spat out for you to know what you need to design for in a UI is huge. But I think anything that just tightens up that communication between the design and development, we've been creating a full separation between design and development for such a long time. And so anything that tightens that up and makes it easy, that makes it so much quicker to work between the two or even be able to collaborate on it is going to be huge.
I really like that term speculative artifacts because I think that describes what a lot of design tools output today, which it's not a bad thing at all, but it's also something that you have to do a little bit more work to have it actually be useful in an application. And so I think with what we're creating and with just the whole idea of state charts in general, the idea of being able to simulate different flows throughout the app and have it working, that's it makes it more than just a pretty diagram. So that's what I'm excited about.
Something that I sort of that's an amazing phrase, Laura. That's so good. That's something that I sort of intuit about the way designers work, having never been a designer myself, is that you're sort of trying to make manifest what the client wants, and the client doesn't always perfectly know what they want. And in order to do that feedback loop properly, you've got to go quite a long way round. You've got to design all of these screens and sort of speculatively put that out there and say, is this what you wanted, please? Whereas potentially with a simulation, you can kind of output something that's pretty easy to build, that you can just have small descriptions or sketches for each state or whatever. And then you can just go, is this what you meant? And they can play around with it, let's say. And that means that you can then have a sort of intermediary artifact, which is not yet the design, but the the client can still give feedback on. Does that sound useful?
Yeah, and the fact that you're bringing it all back around to how does it work rather than what does it look like. Because, and it's a problem with client work often, but often when you're just communicating with people who aren't necessarily developers or aren't necessarily even designers, and what people tend to think in terms of what it looks like rather than how it works. And so if we can get closer back to how it works, and it makes us actually focus on really creating technology for humans to use rather than pretty things to promote.
Definitely. And when you have that intermediary artifact, the simulation, then the designers and the developers can actually start work immediately because they both know how it works. The designers then get to look on how it looks, and the developers can work on the implementation.
Yeah, it's going to be, we're going to make so many cool things. It's going to be so useful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think we have any more unanswered questions that I can see. Anybody else had anything they wanted to mention? Otherwise, we can wrap it up for the week.
I just worked out that the guy who wrote the book Constructing the User Interface with State Charts, he actually teaches at Oxford, and I live like 3 miles away from Oxford, so I could just go and knock on his door, see if he's got any more copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, go stalk it.
Maybe.
It might mean that it's
Maybe.
easier to find in a local library.
Yeah.
You better go visit him at the uni and not on the house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, true. Yeah.
I read your book.
Mr. Horrocks, please.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all from me.
Oh, fantastic. It's been lovely to see all of your comments, I guess. We can't really see your faces. And say hello to everyone. I hope that you've had a happy new year, and we look forward to seeing you with many more office hours in the rest of 2022. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.